Jim's parents had just moved into the neighborhood. My family moved from Baltimore, Maryland, and at that time there were 8 children. We moved in 5 houses away. And during that first week that we moved, I was out checking out the neighborhood, and I heard these kids playing in this one yard, and it was a 6-foot privacy fence, and I climbed the privacy fence up and looked over, and there was Donna, Jim's mother, on the garden on the other side. And if she could tell you the story, I can't say it like she did, but I said, "Hi, you got any kids to play with?" And that's where we met.
Yep, that's where we met.
Summer going into 7th grade.
She was 11 and I was 12.
He was 12.
Jim's parents, James Curd Sr. and Donna Mae Young, were married in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1948. The next year, they moved to Denver, Colorado to attend the University of Denver, and after school, Jim's dad became one of the original ad men. He started his own advertising firm, James S. Curd and Associates.
He was the advertising, marketing madman, and he dressed like it, he looked like it, he acted like it. He was just a guy you just go, that's a cool guy right there.
He came home in a slender suit and white shirt and thin tie, and we were kind of the be seen and not heard generation. So he would come home and Mom would have dinner ready.
Jim's mom, she was the sweetest lady I've ever known. She always had kind words to say. She was always very gentle, and she always wanted to know how you were.
She was always, like Mark said, very sweet, and I just remember her giggle.
Curd family. You look gorgeous. Oh, you just look terrific. I got to thank Channel 8, KTUL-TV in Tulsa. They send us some of the greatest families, and we thank you for being here.
Oh, we've been waiting to be here. Be still my heart.
Oh. Be still my heart.
In 1973, Jim and Kacy both left to attend Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado. A year later, one of his father's big clients, the H.C. Price Company, convinced James to move his ad agency to the Price Tower in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. In 1978, Jim Jr. and Kacy were married, and then in 1980, they also moved to Bartlesville. Jim went to work with his brother-in-law in construction. Later that year, his brother-in-law opened Dink's Pit Barbecue. He owned the restaurant until 1987 when he sold it to Jim Jr.
My uncle had opened up a barbecue restaurant here, and he started kind of working with him and eventually ended up taking over that business. And so growing up at an early age, I was heavily involved with, him being in the restaurant and being down at the restaurant and spending time there and even eventually working there.
Really the only job I've ever had is working in my dad's restaurant. So that kind of came very early to me, and it was very much against my dad's wishes. He always told me to get out of the restaurant business. He wanted me to go to school and do something different. But I just kept finding myself back, doing what I enjoyed.
I urged them both not to be in the restaurant business, just because of the time constraints. And anybody that works for themselves, it's no different. It's a lot of time that you have to put into the business and be away from your family a lot.
Austin and Landon Curd both moved back to Bartlesville after several years away. Austin is married to Stephanie and works at ConocoPhillips. They have 2 children, Tanner and Ava. Landon is married to Kristen and is the co-owner of Dink's. They have 1 daughter, Kennedy.
Jim, he's a pretty good golfer, and now that he wins the senior club championship every year out at Hillcrest, and he thinks that's a real big title, and so we just humor Jim and let him think that that's such a big title.
Well, I actually met Jim on Adams Golf Course. I don't know if anybody knows this, but he was a professional golfer at one time. He was actually pretty good, and I was horrible. I mean, I thought it was how many times you could hit the ball that mattered. It was bad. Well, we played together one time, and he was very kind and very gentle about my golf game, and we got to be friends. And so we just kept getting together once in a while and talking about the restaurant business because we were both in it. And we decided that, you know what, Bartlesville needs a really good restaurant. And so in 1992, we opened Sterling's Grill.
In 1992, the Curds expanded their restaurant business when they opened Sterling's Grill with co-owner Mark Spencer. And then in 2000, together they opened the River Grille Steakhouse in Bentonville, Arkansas, along with Brenda Swango.
that was a weird time because when those two, Mark and Jim, decided to do this, my recollection was everybody thought they were crazy.
It was at that time that Phillips had made some major cuts, and everybody thought that Jim and Mark were absolutely crazy to open a restaurant at a time where everything was downsizing.
And it was successful mainly because everybody knew we were trying hard and that we would do our very, very best. And we were there every day to meet our customers.
I've been city manager for a dozen years, and as an employee of the city for the last 25 years. You'd be surprised how much business has taken place in the back room of Jim Curd's restaurant, Sterling's.
Jim and Kacy have figured out how to make a successful restaurant out of Sterling's. It starts with having Kacy out in front winning over guests with her welcoming personality.
What is most impressive about them is they do not sell food. They feed people. And I think it makes all the difference.
Jim is a successful businessman, but alongside Jim Curd, shoulder to shoulder, is his wife Kacy. She works as tirelessly as he does to make this happen.
Let me tell you, she will crack the whip in there. She'll do it, and she keeps them moving and all that.
You know, you could probably walk through there on a Friday night and a majority of them come in because of the relationship they've built with her.
And she's so welcoming to all the customers, which I think is a huge part to success.
It doesn't matter what kind of day she's had or what kind of week she's had or what she's going through personally, she's there.
I love going into Sterling's now. My mom's there, and you know, I think 9 out of 10 people that walk through the door she knows by the first name. She's giving hugs constantly to customers, and I just think it's great.
Jim is the Forrest Gump of Bartlesville, and everybody knows what I mean. You've seen him mow his yard. You've seen him mow his restaurant's yards. You've seen him mow the ballparks. You've seen him mow the people parks. Jim mows wherever Jim can mow. Jim mows the sides of the highway.
Jim was taking his tractor up and he was mowing the fields. He was taking care of the fields. He even went down and he was mowing right-of-way along Frank Phillips Boulevard because the city was in a crunch. They didn't have all the help they needed, and they were having to let right-of-way go, and it was growing up. That so impressed me that a guy would care that much for how his city looked and that he would go out and do that.
Well, he'd be really bad because he'd be on the boys' field doing the boys' field because of our children. And then he'd look over and see the girls' softball fields. Well, that's not right. And he'd jump over on his trailer and he just...
They were playing in, you know, knee-high weeds over there.
And he just would mow that, and then next thing you know, he's mowing down the roadway, and you're just like, you know, he's gone for 5 hours.
Jim Curd is the king of the maintenance. He and Bob Lindblom. I don't want to leave out Bob, but you know, the two of them were our go-to guys. And when we did the 2003 World Series, excuse me, Jim would make sure that the fields were in pristine shape.
Jim Curd has a wonderful heart. He really does. And I've just seen him, I've seen it grow over the years too. And he's just a great guy.
In 1992, Jim won his first seat on the Bartlesville City Council. He then decided to run again in 2016 and won his current seat on the council for Ward 3.
I think Jim was inspired to run for council primarily because he really cares about the city. And he knows that to make a difference, he's going to have to be involved, and he can't do it at arm's length. And I think that's what drove him to run, so he could make a difference.
I'd like to read a quote from Councilmember Curd. And he says, "I'm committed to our city and its forward progress, and will do all that I can to represent the interest of Ward 3, that's where he lives, and of the city itself, the city of Bartlesville." And Councilmember Curd has kept his promise. He is an activist and is forward-thinking.
I do not know of any critical issues or important issues that they have stood by and say, oh, well, no. To me, there are people who make things happen, people who wait for things to happen, and people who don't know what happened. They have been people who make things happen.
Everything my dad does for the community or my mom does for the community, it's always been about an underlying love for Bartlesville.
Jim, I've told you, and I want to tell you and Kacy and the boys again, I am proud to know you. This is such a deserved honor for the Curd family. I know your mom and dad are so proud of you, of what you're doing, and I know your sons are proud of what you're doing and that they will carry on.
This honor of being a legacy family couldn't have fallen to a better family, because just like the legacy talks about, it's about what you've done, what you've left for people, and you have actually done the work, and that's pretty cool. Good for you.
When we heard that you all were getting this, we just felt nobody was more deserving than Jim and Kacy Curd and what they've done for our community. And, you know, whether it be the city, schools, organizations, whatever it is, they're there. The Curds are there.